Thanks to the Cortland Sea Club Hall of Fame and all the really friendly and fine folks in the Cortland Athletic Department for making this weekend really special for my family. Mom and Dad are gone. I've got two other brothers who couldn't make it. They are very pleased about this, and this is a moment that my brother would really relish. I was just talking to one of our friends from Long Island who said that Stan really was bled red all the time. He was a humble guy, but he was probably the best teammate you could have because he was a guy who gave to you with his play and with his friendship. I'd like to congratulate all the other members of the Hall of Fame for their very deserving induction. You have all earned your way into this very, very big Hall of Honor, and I'd like to say congratulations to all the folks. When I was out on the field this afternoon, when we got recognized at the football game, I said to the young lady who was a cheerleader who escorted me out there, I said, you know, one of the things that I've been known for my whole life is Stan's little brother. And most people try to outgrow that. I never did. I never will. He was somebody that was an inspiration. Jack Gedrick's brothers talked about him being inspiring. Everything I did in my life was basically under his direction. It came from my dad, who was a soft-spoken guy, but Stan was a guy who led by what his actions were, and when he said something to you, you listened. I told the story earlier today about coming home from a high school basketball game, and I thought I played pretty well. And he watched the game. He was on somewhere. He was not at home, but he was coming to visit, watch us play. And I walked in the house, and I was pretty proud of myself. And I was about to say something about, you know, what you think about the game. He grabs me by the shirt, and he goes like, looks at me in the eye, and he goes, "It's called a warm-up for a reason. You're supposed to sweat. Don't you ever go on the court again and not warm up like you're supposed to." And obviously, I was being pretty upset about that, and I still say it to the kids that I coach lacrosse right now. So I agree with Coach Emmer, one of the finest midfielders that ever played the game in Cortland. And he was Cortland's first three-time All-American. It's an honor for me to be representing our family here as Stan gets inducted. We miss him every day, and all of you that knew him know that the fun meter runs very low these days because Stan's not with us. His unparalleled athletic accomplishments are well documented for all of you to read, but I just want to offer some insights that would provide strong evidence that his selection was well documented and well earned. He was dedicated and passionate for lacrosse, his profession, his friends, his Polish heritage, and mostly his family. When he came to Cortland, he was 160 pounds, and when he graduated, he was 190, with the body and the skills and the speed and strength that made him a National Hall of Fame member. And he was undeterred by a serious injury that he had in the Cortica Cup game, kept him from playing football anymore. And as some of you know him, he had the worst feet of any good athlete I've ever seen. Our family has bunion toes, and his were overlapping. And when you saw him in the last parts of his life, he was never wearing anything but Crocs because of his toes. But he did it, and I don't know how he did it. I got mine fixed, but he never did, so. But following his days at Cortland, he played and coached at a very high level. And I vividly remember as a kid, he and Ron Fraser at Long Island lacrosse games, standing outside the restraining box with the first of the plastic heads, and hitting corners and hitting pipes and laughing and looking at the other guys on the other team and going, "You guys got no chance." And I've done some research on lacrosse. I did my master's thesis on the history of lacrosse at Penn State, so I know I've done a lot of history stuff. And I would say that group of Long Island lacrosse players, the Long Island AC team, might have been the best talent assemblage of lacrosse anywhere at any time. They were really, really good. But lacrosse wasn't number one for Stan because he loved his family. He was always there for our parents, and personally for my two sons, he was the coolest uncle you could ever have. And I was always more nervous at any games I ever played at when he attended, but when the game was over, he was my biggest fan. And as I said before, I hear his words coming out of my mouth when I'm coaching my kids, and I go, that's me. Legacy. And one of the last things I'll say is I don't think I'm far off the mark when I say that Stan was a Pied Piper in everything he did. He always wanted to be around Stash, and that's a nickname he loved because he was the proudest Polish lacrosse player anybody knew. Regardless of the activity, lacrosse games, fishing, skiing, Atlantic City, singing 50 songs, people wanted to be around Stan because he always made me feel like one of the family. That huge circle of friends includes teammates and friends from LIAC, Cortland, and Mineola. And I want to thank Bob Guido, Ernie Olson, Jack Dillon, and Stan's two fraternity brothers, Eric Bradshaw and Doug Bailey for coming tonight. This would have meant a lot to him. And I know these guys made a trek to come here, but they all said they wouldn't miss it. Also in that family of friends were two coaches from Cortland who were legends, Al Pisano and Pete Kaczynski. And then players from his teams. I talked to these guys from Half Hollow Hills or Cedarview Post or Farmingdale. We're Holy Family. They always had great things to say about him. And one time there was a visit from the Australian national team at our house. It was a Mother's Day weekend. And my dad had decided he was going to take my mom and us to a place called Lorraine Murphy's, which is a really fancy restaurant. My dad never did this. And that was the same weekend the guys from the Australian national team came to visit us. And we basically had a table of about 8. And these guys from Australia took over the restaurant. They went from table to table, telling dirty jokes, doing magic tricks, singing songs. Meanwhile, the whole time Stan's got a beer in his hand, he's laughing like crazy because that's the way he was. And that's the kind of people that like to be around the stadium. In closing, please accept the very humble thanks from my Kowalski family, the Cortland Athletics, for honoring Stan, who always did the right thing, the classy thing, and the respectful thing, surrounded by his family and friends. Thanks again for honoring Stan for his career at Cortland, a place that he loved and that he was very proud of. Thank you.